content.
I work in blockchain research, specifically in the mathematics of blockchains. These algorithms that are now using a lot of computational power and storing quite a significant amount of wealth. Clearly, this is some kind of phenomenon. There's some technologies that are 0 to 1, that didn't exist before, and then once they exist, change everything else. These kinds of innovations that make something instantly many orders of magnitude cheaper or faster or better. So then I heard about smart contracts, this idea that once you have an online ledger, you could then use it to move money around as part of contracts, do dispute resolution about that money on-chain. That's when I really got interested. The way I look at it is that it's like an instant digital legal system, instant digital trust, scalable trust. Edit out the good one, the one that's good there. You know, what brings about broad adoption is the sum of all the things. If you're making legal systems 1,000 times cheaper, then it's not just your legal costs become 1,000 times less. It becomes, you have new industries that become economically viable after that. There's new things you can do, new kind of economic connections that can be made that otherwise never existed. And that's what you want to get from all of this. We're at this tipping point. If you can get people to just extract the benefit of the technology we already have, and then no one would ever go back to doing something in a more expensive way, just as we don't go back to using horse and carriage. So how do you get this kind of flip? The thing that you could do right now with what we've got becomes what we do with what we've got. Find a way for smart contracts to be used for real world things. And the technology is already there. You don't use the internet and you're just using mail or like a pigeon to communicate information when you just send a text. You're going to be way behind and miss important things. You're not going to be able to compete.
Yeah.
I'd rather do it on the blockchain.
Christ. Oh, fuck.
I'd rather save that 20%.
Spreading the good word on good work in crypto. My name is Tim, and today I'm here with my fellow burner, my fellow compatriot on-chain journeyman, and deep crypto researcher, Chris Blake. And today we are out here in Mississauga at Mount Nemo Conservation Park. It's cold as a motherfucker out here right now. Yeah, Chris, would you like to make an introduction?
I'm Chris Blake. I don't know what to say.
Take your time.
Yeah, so I'm a lot of things, but things that might be relevant to this channel are that I work in blockchain research, specifically in the mathematics of blockchains. Did you have any questions?
Well, did you have anything else to say?
I don't have any questions. I don't know. I'm okay.
Like how long have you been in crypto for?
The first time I heard about crypto or anything about crypto was that I read about Bitcoin. And that was back at the beginning, like when it was something that was in the news, and it was like most people, I thought that it would be something more like this million pixel website where you could pay money for each pixel or each square, and it was $1 and people made $1 million on it, and which is a great business, a little trend. But at first it didn't seem like it would be something that would ever be worth that much. Well, maybe $1 million, maybe $1 billion. And now, as we know, it's worth over, it's worth over $1 trillion now, I think, right? Like, it's worth over $1 trillion.
Total market cap?
Yeah, I believe it's worth over $1 trillion now. So that's a lot more than just $1 million. The way I look at it now is that clearly this is some kind of phenomenon. And it's not for me to say that it shouldn't be a phenomenon. It's for me to try to find some understanding of why it is a phenomenon, because it is. In my work, I can work on mathematical questions about these algorithms that are now using a lot of computational power and storing quite a significant amount of wealth. Those kinds of things are claims like if certain conditions are met, the probability that a particular blockchain is secure is high. And I can give you a number or a formula for it. But there's also another layer with blockchains. And I can't address that in the work that I do.
Okay.
Other than to note that my work can't address those kinds of things. Okay. It can only inform tangentially these kinds of things. And that involves the social consensus layer that's going on with this. So let's look at the Bitcoin protocol, for example. The Bitcoin protocol, which I do mathematical work on understanding, is also associated with a very widespread social convention, a worldwide social convention of valuing Bitcoin on the Bitcoin blockchain, treating that as something of monetary value, of treating it as something with a price. So there's two things to distinguish here. The work that I do involves numbers, involves formulas that represent numbers, okay? But there's another kind of number that goes on in cryptocurrency. It's a price number. And that price is set by a market. It's not something that my mathematics can address.
Okay.
And I think it's important to say that.
Right.
as a person who does the mathematics. I cannot
say
address
more.
the second part.
Do say more.
But I can address the first parts, which are interesting. Well, my math can't address it, but I can certainly address what I think, but I have no particular insight compared to anyone else about what a market says, because a market is actually just a social phenomenon. It's something for which I both lack the complete model of and utterly lacking in information. And everyone is. We're all just a piece of a bigger market, and so we can't really know what goes on with that. But then in addition to that, I can also address what we should do. I can have an opinion about what we should do.
Okay. What should we do?
So you asked me, well, how did I get into cryptocurrency? That's where this question started, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I went on and on about something, but the...
Love it.
Right,
it's good content already.
There was the question was, okay, how did I get into cryptocurrency? So I first heard about it. Well, obviously, like, good for them. It's going to make a little bit of money, but this can never possibly last. This doesn't make any sense. And then I heard about it again in 2015, and that's when I first acquired a little bit of cryptocurrency. Not nearly enough.
2015.
2015.
Fucking bull.
Or 2016, actually. I think it was 2016.
Okay.
Early on, it was just a small amount. And then I looked at it later on, and I'm like, oh, this is like worth now like a few $1,000s, and it was just $40, and it became like a few $1,000s, which is a rather big gain. Now, that's not a life-changing amount of money or anything, but it's still, I mean, it's enough to get your attention, especially since at the time I was a PhD student.
Yeah, broke as a motherfucker.
Yeah. So then obviously, okay, by 2017, I obviously recognized that this is something significant, but of course, I missed the train at that point, because I didn't really think it was anything when I got it. I thought it was a novelty or something like that. Then it was in 2018, I heard about smart contracts. So I'd heard about Bitcoin. I had vaguely heard about this idea of proof of work. I didn't know much about it. So then I heard about smart contracts, this idea that once you have an online ledger, whether it be decentralized or not, but in this case, a decentralized ledger, you could then use it to move money around as part of contracts and do dispute resolution about that money on chain. When I heard about that, that's when I really got interested in smart
Was that the 0 to 1 moment, is when you learned about smart contracts?
Yeah, so 0 to 1, this is like the concept of there's some technologies that are 0 to 1, that didn't exist before, and then once they exist, change everything else. The other way to think about it is that these are these kinds of innovations that make something instantly many orders of magnitude cheaper or faster or better. And one example of those would be the printing press. Before the printing press,
the Gutenberg
printing press from the, now we could look up the date. I think it's the 1200s or. Put the number in a thing. You can do that, right? Like, put a little number, look it up, put it in it, and make me sound like I know it. Okay. So whenever that happened, the cost of making a book went down by orders of magnitude. Because before you had to write everything. It's not just the people who had books now had them for cheaper. Now, so many more people could buy books. And so many more people could become educated. It seems reasonable to argue that the printing press is one of the things that led to the Enlightenment and the Renaissance.
Totally, 100%. Because ideas can then be spread.
If innovation is this thing, it's hard to do, but some genius gets an idea and figures something out. If more people have the base knowledge, then the chance that you're going to get ideas to arise, given that base knowledge, goes up if a lot more people have that base knowledge. Another example of a 0 to 1 thing that I think has happened in our lifetime is the rise of the internet. It certainly made information thousands, millions of times cheaper. Before, when we were kids, the way you would get information is, it had to be on a TV channel. So if you wanted a specific piece of information, it better be something that they broadcast on that channel. Or you could subscribe to a magazine, and once a month you get that information in a magazine. And then the newspaper would only give you some select information. Now, easily, in an instant, everyone in their pocket, everywhere, can get all of that information and more, and everything ever published practically in an instant. Pretty much for free. Now, not completely for free, but relative to the cost before, massively cheaper. Well, smart contracts, to me, the way I look at it is that it's like an instant digital legal system, instant digital trust, scalable trust. Edit out the good one, the one that's good there. Okay. Scalable trust. See, the thing is, at first it doesn't seem like it does anything when you first hear about it. Like, well, what is this thing? Like, don't we already have a legal system?
How did you even get into crypto in the first place?
So I think there were 3 main events that led me to get into crypto. The first one was that I got a friend to give me a small amount of crypto in 2016. The second was...
very nice friend.
Yeah, exactly. Or 2018, I learned about the concept of a smart contract. And then 2019, I did some consulting work for a smart contract company. And then In 2021, I audited a course that was being presented online on blockchain security. That's when I started to do my own research into blockchains, which I'm still doing today.
Oh, okay. You're actually one of the first people I know personally that actually worked inside the crypto industry. So I was really wondering, for a lot of our non-crypto working viewers and audience, how does someone in a non-crypto position find themselves in a privileged research position in the crypto industry?
So the way I did this is that I first got a PhD in information theory and electrical engineering. So the way you do that is, if you want to, you had to do really well in school, I had to get into a PhD program, and then to finish the PhD, learn how to do mathematical research in the first place. And then I think the main thing was that, I had a credible resume as a researcher, and I was one of the few people who wanted to go into an industry that was by many not considered legitimate. And that got me in.
So I don't know if everyone's going to be able to just get a PhD.
Right, exactly.
So would you have any advice for, let's say, like, your nephew came to you and was like, Uncle Chris, like, I think I want to get into crypto and maybe crypto research. But let's say, like, he doesn't want to get a PhD. Like, what advice would you have for him then?
Well, the question of do you want to get into crypto research is, if you want to do the kind of research that I'm doing, you probably need a master's at least or a PhD, because that's the thing that educates you to do this type of research. On the other hand, maybe you mean something more broadly when you say crypto research or crypto industry. How would you get in the industry? I think the number one way would be to learn how to program something in the industry.
Okay.
That would actually be a far easier way for me to get in the industry, to be honest. Figure out what open source projects are available, and then try doing them. Figure out how to do them. And if you can't, try to find resources to help you how to do them.
Right.
And then create a deliverable that's needed for some cryptocurrency project. And then use that in a resume to apply to those industries. Reach out to the people in those companies and make sure they know that you've done those things and you want to help and you want to work with them.
Right.
That would be my strategy if that's what I wanted to do.
I guess that's pretty fair. So you don't think like someone that's just enthusiastic or interested in crypto would be able to get into a research position in crypto?
Well, you have to have some level of competency in the actual thing.
Right.
Other than just
rigorousness and
there's a difference between necessary conditions and sufficient conditions. Being enthusiastic is a necessary condition, but it's not sufficient. You need to have the skills for that specific thing. But you don't need to be a researcher to be in the industry. You got to find a use for yourself. I think there's one thing that needs to happen, and we talked about that before, is that we need to, what I think ought to happen is that we somehow change the social consensus layer. Maybe that's something involving law. So maybe you want to become a lawyer or work in that industry. Find a way for smart contracts to be used for real world things. As I've said before, they're just the cheaper, faster, better, and more fraud-proof way of doing online digital contracts. It's as good or better than the existing solution, and the technology is already there. In many ways, what you really want is just usage more than even more crypto projects. You want the basic structure of it to be used for things in the outside world. So, if you want to be in the industry, maybe one of the best ideas is that if you want to get in an industry, figure out the parts of the industry that are going to be in demand, and then focus on those things.
So you were just talking about finding use cases for on-chain, and like that's one of the lowest hanging fruits for getting yourself into the industry. So I just want to double click on the finding the useful use cases for on-chain. So what do you think that might be?
Well, one of the obvious use cases for an on-chain smart contract is in arbitrating a derivatives contract.
Right.
Which I think of mathematically as just any contract that involves a bet on the price of an asset. So a natural thing, we actually talked about this before, a natural thing that could happen is that derivatives contracts of all types of assets, and not just on-chain assets, are arbitrated on-chain.
Right.
It could totally do this.
And the U.S. government is already sort of in the process and in the midst of doing something like this.
Well, I hope so. I think so.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Just the lowest hanging fruit. It
makes sense. The main point is that the arbitrating what the price of an asset is easy because it's a very objective black and white thing. So that's very appropriate to be arbitrated on a smart contract.
So let's get imaginative then. Like, are there other examples of things that we can bring on chain that's not derivatives markets or finance related?
The one thing that I've been thinking of for years, and there are some projects on blockchains regarding this, is we should arbitrate Airbnb type short-term rental contracts on chain. There's no difference between that and then what Airbnb does, except that a smart contract can do it with a lower fee. So, if you're an owner of a property, you could list on Airbnb and then also list on chain, and then anyone who does the on-chain contract coupled with some arbitrator that's mutually agreed upon, you could save 10% of the fee or save half the fee and only pay 10% instead of 20%. Like, if you could get people to just extract the benefit of the technology we already have, and then then they get the more rentals because they're charging a lower price. That eventually forces everyone else to do it. If you're into this, use it to your advantage, and then for now, that's your benefit. And then as more people use it, more people get that benefit.
Why hasn't that been built yet?
Well, that's kind of a question that's like, I can't really give an answer to why. I can only speculate. But it seems to me it's mostly just a matter of nobody wants to do it because nobody does it. But if everybody did it, it would be totally normal that everybody did it. So how do you get this kind of flip? And I can only brainstorm ways that this could happen. But then once it happens, I think we're stuck. We're going to be doing that forever because we're stuck in.
Once we're on chain, we're on chain.
We're on chain.
Everything's going to be on chain
because it's better that way, because it's cheaper, and then no one would ever go back to doing something in a more expensive way. Just as we don't revert back to using horse and carriage to get around the city now that we have cars.
I love that analogy.
Cars are better.
Yeah.
But there's a similar thing that happens with social media sites. There's only a few because there's a network effect, and there can't be that many. And if you try to make another one, it doesn't really work, and it kind of fails.
Yep.
And that always happens because you need a network effect. And for smart contracts to be used and trusted, you kind of need a little bit of a social effect. People kind of say, well, this is how we do it, so you just do it. Okay, so here's a few ways it could happen. It could come top down. Like maybe a major company decides to be a platform for running smart contracts. Like say Airbnb switches to smart contracts. And maybe they think investing in being an arbitrator oracle in smart contract is the best long-term decision.
Airbnb.
And then they decide to do it.
Yeah.
And they decide to do it, right? Maybe a country decides that it's actually a better way to do dispute resolution on chain than it is to a decentralized third party. And so some country that wants to embrace cryptocurrency maybe says the law is that all Airbnb style contracts must be on chain.
Yeah.
And then that immediately gives rise to an industry of arbitrators, which presumably would compete. And unlike with Airbnb, not have a monopoly on arbitration. And so that's another possibility. Some other possibilities. Potentially, you could get President Trump to direct some of the regulators. Is it the SEC that does this? Whoever does it, whoever claims jurisdiction on this, decide to make it a law that you have to do derivatives contracts on chain. And then I think what you get is a kind of, if you've heard the term preference cascade, once some people start using this, and then it makes sense to use it, and they save money doing it, and they save legal costs doing it, then all others must do it, or they can't compete because it would be inefficient. This is how all markets become efficient.
It's how the internet took hold of the world.
If you don't use the internet, and you're just using mail or like a pigeon to communicate information when you could just send a text, you're going to be way behind and miss the important things.
There's a soundbite.
You're not going to be able to compete.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think this will happen. I think it should happen. But again, as I've said before, my expertise is in the mathematics of blockchains. And this is a social phenomenon. So I'm probably not the best person to ask how to do this, other than to say, I can say that the math doesn't tell you to do this. The math doesn't tell you that you have to get a president to do this. This is an outside thing. Okay? There's a point I'm trying to get with that. It's like parts of these things are these solid computable things, and parts of these things, parts of these things are concrete, computable, black and white things. And those are the kinds of things I can write about, I can work on. But there's a layer.
Social layer stuff.
That layer, it's more complex.
Yeah.
And
not so black and white.
It's not so black and white.
You can't make a cause-effect XY prediction.
But maybe, maybe if you're not into mathematics, maybe that's the skill that you have and that's what you want to do. Right? So
the social layer stuff?
Yeah, maybe you want to work on. Maybe there's a way
icky.
to. Now, well, of course, then you could just be like an influencer that's like saying like Coinbase and or whatever. I don't want
what I'm doing right now.
Exactly, right, exactly.
Fuck, you just threw me under the bus right there.
Well, I mean, you can do this. Well, okay, so here's a question then. What do you do to change the social layer? if you're an influencer, how would you do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a really good question. As a social layer player, influencer, as Chris would say, what I can do is just continue to put out content like this and put out crypto education like this to try and get more people bullish as fuck about crypto.
In a way, just doing it gives some legitimacy to the idea of it. But again, we're at this tipping point. At some point, the thing that you could do right now with what we've got becomes what we do with what we've got.
Yeah.
And then we get the benefits of that. The other thing is that I think what you get with this type of technology is if you're making legal systems 1,000 times cheaper, roughly speaking, right? If you make legal systems 1,000 times cheaper, then it's not just your legal costs become 1,000 times less. It becomes, you have new industries that become economically viable after that. There's new things you can do, new kind of economic connections that can be made that otherwise never existed. And that's what you want to get from all of this.
Great.
Is that a good,
Yeah, it's a great answer. All right, crypto has been a thing for over a decade now. Smart contracts have been a real thing for at least 7 years now, if not more than that. And yet crypto is in this state of like, what are we doing here?
Not yet full adoption.
Yeah.
But still, there's this like subgroup of people who widely use it. We think that there will be mass adoption, but it isn't there yet, and it's still a little bit fringe.
Yeah. Fringe and cringe.
Yeah. So there, exactly. That's a good word, actually. Cringe. It's a bit cringe still.
Yeah.
Even though I do research in it. I work with universities on this, and here's the one thing that I think crypto needs, and it's a very easy method to prevent a very common type of scam that has affected people I know who've lost significant money. And it's obvious, it's easy, and I can't believe we haven't done it yet. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the type of scam that it is. The security of a smart contract is that you have to sign a digital contract in order for you to move the money. And if you don't sign a digital contract, the money can't go anywhere. And the idea is that
the on-chain word for that is like authorizing a transaction or signing for a transaction.
Yeah. So you have to authorize a transaction, but the problem is that most users of a smart contract
don't fall down.
Most users of a smart contract don't read code and don't have time to read it. Okay.
Sorry.
No worries. So what you could do is, can we go down there?
Should we go down there?
Let's finish this thing and then we'll go down there.
Okay.
So the question is, what do you do? Why not just have every smart contract associated with written text in English explaining what it is? Make it part of the standard of a smart contract. There's like a part of the data structure has just in plain English text that explains exactly what it does. Now, but here's a problem with that.
The thing is, you can write anything.
Okay. And then you have a decentralized set of oracles associated with your wallet that can accredit a smart contract that says that the smart contract is what that text says. Now the weakness...
Or could be like AI integrated to like verify that too.
Certainly an AI that was local to your computer that could verify that English word describes what the smart contract is. That could be a way to implement it as well. But the point is that however it's done, it's like the idea is that a smart contract should be a simple program that is easily auditable, that has no ambiguity, and the only problem is that almost nobody knows how to read the code. So they can easily be tricked by a phishing email to sign. They think what they're doing is accepting something because that was presented to them as that this contract is accepting some airdrop, for example. But actually what it's doing is it's just a contract that sends the scam artist all your money in your wallet. There's nothing to prevent them from saying that in the fundamental algorithm. But if you put as part of your convention for running a smart contract, you look at some oracles or some AI tool that you trust separately to audit the contract and audit its description, then that mitigates this risk. It's a simple solution. I don't think it's been done yet, although if it has been done, I'd love to know about it. And I think that just becomes standard.
And you think that will bring about broad adoption of crypto?
Well, what brings about broad adoption is the sum of all the things.
Yeah.
But one of the things you need to do is have a level of user friendliness and fraud proofness.
100%.
And this is a simple, easy thing to do there's no special cryptographic algorithm needed for this. You need digital signatures for the accredited auditors.
Yeah.
You need auditing skill to understand how to write a smart contract. Well, there's people who know how to do that. And then you just need to integrate this into standard wallets. And then the wallets give you a green light for any smart contract that gives you a proper description. That's a simple thing, but it's like
who's doing it?
I don't know. I don't know who's doing it. But anyways, like just
As more of a statement to the camera.
exactly. Who's doing it?
Yeah. I had a few more questions, so bear with me. I was just really curious to know, how do you engage with the blockchain right now?
I think I don't want to answer that question publicly.
I'm going to add that to the clip.
That's a reason why I don't think I want to answer that question publicly. That's a good question.
What sort of things might you, I guess I just like trading, DeFi, DEX,
let's put it this
staking,
way.
etc.
If I could save money on any contract because it's done on a smart contract as opposed to a centralized online arbitrator like an Airbnb or even an Amazon potentially, I'd rather do it on the blockchain.
Christ, oh, fuck.
I'd rather save that 20%. It's the chicken and egg problem of, will people start offering those contracts? If so, I'll gladly take it, as anyone would, because I'd rather save the money. But again, this is that social layer. That's not my expertise.
Yeah.
Other than knowing that that's the thing that needs to be done.
Gotcha.
It's not an algorithmic thing. It's not a mathematical thing. It's a social thing that needs to be done for mass adoption. But I think we could be close.
Cool. Well, thanks for bearing with me doing this hike and answering some questions. That was great. Did you have any closing remarks? If you could say one thing to the world about crypto, like one phrase, one statement, like what would you say?
Real people are doing it. Real people think that this is a legitimate thing, even though it seems a bit cringe. That would be my final remark. It is a real thing, and it's not fake.
It's not fake.
Now,
it's not just magic internet money.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's not just that, right? It has to not just be that, even though it's totally reasonable to think it's that.
Yeah.
Because there's a little bit of two things going on. It can be both legitimate, and most things associated with it are not legitimate. Both things are true. And the question of our society is, when are we going to like figure out how to extract the legitimate from this thing?
If people wanted to reach out to you, how might they want to do that? Do you have any social media or?
I don't do social media.
You don't do social media?
I don't do social media.
If people wanted to reach out to you to do like a research collaboration, how might they go about doing that with Mr. Christopher Blake?
So you can find my research papers under Christopher Blake online. And if there's any topics that you're interested in, you can find my contact information on those things.
Okay, cool.
And I'm associated with the University of Toronto for most of my research stuff. So you can find it there.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, maybe you could put my just contact info on the bottom of it.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do the thing here.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks for doing this with me. Appreciate
welcome.
your time and spreading the good word on good work in crypto. Chris is doing great work, or has done great work, and might continue to do great work. So
I hope so.
Yeah.
Hope so.
Thanks for listening, guys. Peace.